Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone. Looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, where we explore life through the lens of the feminine journey, past, present, and future. From spirituality and self-growth to real talk about relationships, health, and purpose. We're here to ask questions, share wisdom, and inspire deeper conversations. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host today, Christen Blakely, and I'm with my mom, Cindy Murray, and my best friend, Amber Jones.
Hi.
Today, we're talking about one of my favorite scrapbooking topics, but we're going to dive into it. If you're not into scrapbooking, please stay and listen, because it's not just about scrapbooking here, folks. We're not about to just talk about cutting and gluing paper together.
Although we do like that.
We do love it. But we're going to talk about Project Life, which is and was a style of scrapbooking, which has often been called pocket pages. And so I'm going to describe what it is, and then we'll take it from there. But pocket pages are basically like if you were using a photo album, and all of your scrapbook pages were protected by a page protector. Then pocket pages are there's a multitude of different sizes of pocket pages, but think about like baseball trading cards, how they all go in like little pocket pages. So the idea is that instead of having a blank piece of paper, like this giant canvas that you're supposed to somehow figure out where to glue all your pictures, the pockets kind of guide you and slightly limit you so that you can explore creativity without feeling overwhelmed with a giant empty canvas, and you just fill the pockets. The first time I saw someone using pocket pages, I was really inspired because, one, it was very easy, and there wasn't necessarily like a lot of cutting of paper involved. And it just seemed like a way to get the pictures into that photo album without all the fuss.
And quickly.
Kind of quickly. Yeah, it's a lot quicker than like I said, staring at a big blank canvas and sometimes feeling uninspired, because I get blank canvas
syndrome,
yeah, where I just kind of stare at it because I know what I need to do and I know what I want, but I don't necessarily know how to go about it or how to spark that inspiration. So sometimes just putting the photos in the pockets and then going from there is the easiest way. I'm pretty sure she's the lady that invented pocket page scrapbooking. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but
I mean, pocket I called it a photo album because there have always been photo albums with those pocket pages. So, but I think she kind of inspired the beginnings of cutting up those pattern paper and sliding them into those slots along with your photos.
Yeah.
So it's not just photos on that page. It's journaling and maybe some sentiment, like today was a great day, or a title and stuff like that.
And what I was thinking is that, in a sense, she kind of like paved the way for it by creating these prefabricated pocket inserts.
Yes.
So her product was she had the binder, and then you got the little transparency pocket pages that were, just clear plastic to protect your photos. And then you could get this little paper kit that had all these like matching papers. Coordinated cards, so that like if it was kind of floral, all of them matched or interchanged without you having to worry about like, does this color match, or is this too garish, or like they belonged together.
And they had Christmas themes and other holidays.
All these different themes, and you could just use them over and over and over again. I believe her kits were kind of designed so that you could fill an entire binder with the cards and have it all match.
Right.
And that's what I really liked about it, because I probably spent more time scrapbooking, like holding two pieces of paper and like
what do I do
trying
with
to
this?
decide like if the color looked right, or like, oh, I have this flower paper, and I got to find this other piece of paper that matches with it.
Right.
And that's kind of like a lot of time spent. And I just didn't get as much scrapbooking done that way. So I saw a lady scrapbooking and in this manner, and I thought, wow, that would really help me get some of my old pages, because I'm so behind. I'm perpetually like 4 years behind, and I was like, this will really help me catch up, because you just one and done, like fill up the little cards and put your pictures in. And so I went and I got a kit with the little pre-cut cards that already fit into the pages, and I was hooked from there. And I've been scrapbooking like that. Every once in a while I do like a full scrapbook page, like the old traditional way, where there's like photos on like a 12 by 12 or a 8.5, 11 size. But I've been doing this Project Life for a while. And I feel like it's a really great way for people to get started with scrapbooking. Who are always like, I want a scrapbook, but I don't know where to start.
Right.
That is where to start. I really feel like it is the best way to start. There are some really simple pages that hold 4x6. They're like the
4x6
the
photo
pockets
that prints
are
out.
4x6. So if you get your photos printed at the photo place, they fit automatically. Just slip them in, and you can get, on this one sheet, if you're doing the 12 by 12 binder that she had as her main binder that she sold, you could get 6 photos on there without like all the frilly paper and stuff. Or you could do like 3 photos with 3 corresponding cards, or any kind of paper that you wanted to use. And so I'm recommending, like, if you were interested in getting started, you should definitely, just Google search Project Life, because there's a lot out there. Now, I was really sad today. Before the episode, I just wanted to look up a few links to share, which of course we will share, like, the link for her website. It's Becky Higgins. And I went to her website and I realized that, and Amber informed me too, that Project Life is actually discontinued. I noticed shopping and like Michael's and stuff that I hadn't seen it in the stores anymore. And I thought, well, why aren't they selling her stuff? But I guess it's her no longer manufacturing it. And I was kind of disappointed in that, but I figured we could still discuss it.
Right.
Because it's still relevant.
Well, and you can, and there's lots of ways to keep doing it, even though you can't buy specifically her product.
So what I wanted to get to was what Project Life, quote unquote, means to me. Because Project Life itself, the product, no longer exists. You can still buy her stuff, but the essence of it still exists. To me, her naming of that Project Life, I feel like my role as a scrapbooker for myself is that I am my own historian, or I'm archiving my life as it unfolds, or in the past I'm going through my pictures and stuff. And as I've continued through my scrapbooking journey, I'm saying that with air quotes, I started off scrapbooking, and it was my high school scrapbook, and then my college scrapbook, and then all the events. And once I got through the events, and cell phones came out, I started scrapbooking like just all the multitude of pictures. And now it comes to me in my 40s, I realize when I'm at those events and stuff, I hardly ever take pictures because I'm enjoying the event itself.
Right.
Whereas back when I had rolls of film, I was like, I'm on this trip. I only got 24 photos. I got to make them good.
Make them count. Make them count.
But now I'm like, I can take pictures of anything now. What I find myself taking pictures of is the day-to-day stuff. I'm not really getting pictures of events and all these like big things. It's the day-to-day stuff. And as I've been archiving, I really start to think about it. Scrapbooking is that project. It's archiving my life.
Or documenting your life.
It's a life project, though. It's like lifelong. Like, I'm committed to continue it through.
I know a lot of scrapbookers who say, well, my kids are grown, so I don't have anything to scrapbook anymore. And I'm like, are you still alive?
Yeah.
Do you still have Christmas? Do you still go do things with your husband? What...
What are the things you love? And that's what
right.
I really come to is with all the other projects that I became interested in, like One Little Word and
right.
stuff like that. Just art journaling itself may not necessarily be Project Life brand Becky Higgins style, but it's part of my Project Life of documenting my life. And so I kind of wanted to talk about it in that sense because when we talk about scrapbooking, because we talk about it often, because that's what Mom and I do. And Amber's kind of gotten started on it. I think she just finished a scrapbook. She started and completed one. Yay!
Yeah.
So we're so proud of you. But the reason why, I felt like Project Life was important to talk about, just as we talk about One Little Word and these other projects, is that it's a really great way to start documenting your life. I have felt so much joy in going back and rekindling those memories,
sharing your story,
my story, and just when it's all said and done, it's an autobiography in photos of my life.
Well, and it doesn't even have to be in photos, and that's
and the Project Life doesn't have to be in photos. It could be little journaling things, and then they just go in the little pockets,
right?
And sorry, I know I'm hogging the whole conversation.
Go ahead. You talk, and I will fill in.
You can fill in. I'll let you talk in a minute.
Y'all both can talk, and I'll just sit here.
It's something I've been passionate about. So, one of the vlogger creator personalities that Mom got me into was Dearly D. And she took my Project Life and inspired me in a new direction, because she does a page for every week. And so at the end of the year, you have a page for each week.
Well, that was originally a Becky Higgins thing, too.
Oh, okay. Well, and I didn't get that from Becky Higgins. It came to me from a different angle, but she used the same pockets and everything. And I was like, oh, I really like that, because in my phone, I have all these random pictures of this and that. And that was where I was really, really struggling with scrapbooking now, because with cell phones, you take pictures of everything, but nothing in particular, right? It's just your everyday life. If you scroll through your photos, it's food and something you saw at the store that you wanted to buy, screenshots and text messages and all these things, what the weather was. Sometimes I'll look on my phone and I'll see crazy weather pattern and I'll screenshot it.
Right.
And then when I go back and look in my photos, I see my life unfolding in these oddball photos. And so I've really enjoyed scrapbooking Project Life in that weekly format.
Right. Well, that's kind of where I fell into the Becky Higgins Project Life thing, because I saw it from the weekly, do a page layout every week about the things that happened that week. And usually, you put a little date reference in there, and then you just take your pictures of things that you took screenshots or photos of throughout that week, and you put them in that little pocket page. And maybe you journal about, we had Snowmageddon a few years ago. So I had a whole layout about what my dog did when she went outside and saw all that snow for the first time, and how we stayed warm by sitting by the fire because we had no electricity for 4 days, and, things like that. And so really it's I love it that it's a way to document everyday life. And so it's not, a lot of people only scrapbook the big things like weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, graduations or whatever. And then once their kids are out of school, they quit documenting. And I'm like, you have half of your life after your kids are grown. You need to document the rest of that as well. And your life doesn't end at high school graduation. So I like putting things together. I've documented my husband's struggle with lung cancer and his eventual death. I've documented my own struggle with diabetes. I have documented the weather or, COVID, different things like that. So, I really like doing that weekly format, and it only takes 6 or 8 photos and one little brief thing to explain what the photos are, a little captioning or a little journaling. And I know that someday somebody will be able to look back at that and know what my life was like. So I really like doing that. Now, Becky Higgins took it a step further than that. A few years ago, she started a thing called My Modern Story. And I think we've talked about that on the podcast before, but it got away from being so photo and scrapbook paper centric. And so she did a thing where at one point she had developed a phone app that you could use to put your photos so you could just take them directly off of your phone and put them in these little templates and print them out and she sold like digital backgrounds that you could add in. So it looked like a pocket page, but it was really just a photograph that was 12 by 12 or 8.5 by 11 or whatever size you chose. And then you could save that and have it printed out in a book format, or you could have it printed and slide it in your page protectors in your regular albums, or however you wanted to do that. And then that evolved into this My Modern Story, which is more of an editorial format. So you can have pages with pictures or without pictures, but it's less photocentric. So you might have just one big photo and a long story. And I love doing that because I had a lot of things that weren't really worthy of making a scrapbook page about, but they were big parts of our family story. And I'll give you a great example. And I will link a photo of it on the blog. But one of the things that's a big family story for us is my Chex Mix recipe, and where I got the Chex Mix recipe and how it became this thing that is a tradition during the Christmas holidays. And so I took a picture of I had taken pictures of our Chex Mix during the holidays, but I don't want to put those on my Christmas pages because my Christmas pages are mostly about the people, maybe my decorations and stuff like that, but mostly about the people who are here at Christmas. But I wanted to document that story about our Chex Mix and why it's important. And so I had this picture that I had taken, and then I wrote the story about its origin and why it's, a part of our family. And it worked really well in this little editorial format, just this one photo and this long story. And so I actually started documenting more things in that format because it allowed me to tell other stories other than just the, holidays or whatever. So, and to me, I like it because I think it's important to document those everyday stories.
Yeah.
Those are the things that get forgotten.
Yeah, it's the little things
right.
The things that we always look back when we have photo albums. If you're just putting your pictures in photo albums, we were always focused on events.
Right.
Like, oh, here's all the pictures from Christmas. And we were so bad about cropping our pictures because there was too much noise in the background.
Right.
But then you cut out the painting on the wall at Grandma's house.
That has hung there forever.
What happened to that? I've never seen that again.
Right. Yeah.
Or, that's the stuff where you go, oh man, remember that couch?
Right. You look at the picture and you go, oh, remember when Mom redecorated her house and redid the color of the sofa or whatever, or painted the walls and those are stories that you might remember, but you might not remember all the details because you might forget why she did it. You might forget that, oh yeah, little Johnny took his green crayon and wrote all over the wall. And so she had to repaint. And that's why the room wound up being blue instead of a white wall now, and those are important stories. And I feel like those are the the things we fail to capture when we're just doing traditional scrapbooking. Now, Amber, you are a storyteller, and you are a writer and an English teacher, and that's why I am so surprised that you don't document in some way. I mean, like I said, they don't have to have
She
pictures.
does.
Oh, I know you do.
Yeah, I do.
I know you do. But you say you don't scrapbook, and that's what I'm talking about, is that, you don't have to have a photo to scrapbook. I have done scrapbooks, and I'm using that term very loosely. I have done scrapbooks with no photos on the page. It's just a story, and maybe I did a little embellishment or something to talk about the story. Christen wrote a story one time when she was in school about picking dandelions, and I included that in one of my scrapbooks, and I didn't have a picture of any dandelions that she had given me, but she gave me lots of dandelions. But I I made a page and put a little dandelion decoration on it, and it documented that story. So I don't know. I think it's important to document those things. So I know a lot of people who say nobody cares about those things, but I guarantee you somebody does, because when I was a kid, I was always interested in hearing about my great-grandmother's life.
That's the one. It's your great-grandmother, because by the time we're old enough to make connections, they're usually gone. And all we remember is this last little stint of their life and what we perceive.
Your grandmother or your great-grandmother. It may not be so much about your parents, because you grew up with your parents and you know your parents' story.
Yeah. That's
very interesting. I do a lot of the Ancestry type of stuff, and there's a way on Ancestry that you can put the story together. And
yes.
I recently met up with my first cousins, and we had a hot debate because we could not remember our grandfather's mother's name.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunts, who were married to my uncles, thought that it was this one lady, and that she had shown up in family pictures of another cousin did when she made a scrapbook.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, well, what is her name? And they were like, oh, it's this. But then then other cousins were like, but we think it's this. And so it was this whole debate where eventually we found on Ancestry that it could have been this or it could have been that, because my grandfather had married somebody else later in life. So we weren't exactly sure which one was our great-grandmother.
Right. Well, and I have a similar story that I think I've talked about too, about my grandmother. My grandmother had been doing genealogy, and she had it in her head that her grandfather's he was either I think he was her great grandfather, that his wife's name is, he had one wife and she had passed, and that he had another wife whose name was Elizabeth, or Talitha. It was Talitha. And she was just sure that was her name. And so when she started doing genealogy research, she ran across a marriage license for him to marry someone named Elizabeth. And so she just assumed that her name, that he had married a third woman, that he had married his first wife, and then he had married Elizabeth, and then he married Talitha. And so, and it wasn't until many years later that we figured out Talitha was on a completely different side of the family, and she had just been mistaken about who Talitha was, that Elizabeth was the one that was her great-grandmother or whatever. And so, but that's because somebody didn't really document those stories well, and so much things were orally passed down that things get mixed up and whatever, and people get confused. And so it was really good to straighten that out. But if somebody had really actually documented those stories better, we would have them. And she learned from that lesson. Actually, before that, she had her own mother start documenting her life. And so I now have a typewritten self-history from my great-grandmother up until the time that she met my great-grandfather. And it was a fascinating story about how she was born in Indian Territory and came to Texas as a young girl by covered wagon, and it was really interesting. And I'm so glad that my grandmother thought to document that for her. So
yeah, I think that with our technology advancements and stuff, I look at my scrapbook now and the things that are in it, people 3 or 4 generations from now are going to look at it and think wow, this ancient backwards life. Yeah. Can you believe they used to use cell phones and computers and laptops and TVs? Yeah. So,
well, and some of the things I've talked about this too, about how I've participated in things like Lay Out a Day and different kinds of challenges that give you prompts of things to document. And one of them that she prompted us to do one time was to do a grocery receipt and do a page about your grocery shopping experience. And so I had a picture of my groceries and the receipt to show how much it cost, because if I look back at that now, I'm like, dang, that bread was cheap. But at the time, I'm complaining about how expensive things are, but compared to today, it was, and you think about how that's going to change in 20, 30, 40 years from now. Somebody else is going to look back at that and go, wow, look, this is how they shop for groceries. They didn't have a teleporter that automatically beamed it into their house or whatever, so.
I can't wait for that one.
I know, me too. I'm ready. But nowadays we have Amazon, we just order things from Amazon. And it comes to it, if you have Prime, you get it sometimes the same day or the next day. But, even 5 years ago, we didn't have that. That, some of that change came during COVID or because of COVID.
Yeah, seriously. I remember, when I lived in Kroll, we could only get it once a week.
And how many people now get their groceries where they have a picker at the store getting their groceries, and they just drive up and let the grocery store know, I'm here, and they come put it in your car for you and everything. That is new and different. And kids who are growing up today, for them, that is normal. But if you had to talk about having to drive 15 miles to get to the grocery store, which, and to go through and buy all your stuff for the whole month because you only get paid once a month.
The grocery store closed at 8.
Right.
I can remember pre-Uber Eats when the internet was real. I mean, it was a thing when we lived.
You mean when you had to call a place to order?
And there was this woman or this website that they would go and pick up the food for you, but this was pre-Uber Eats, and you had to call the place, order it for pickup, and then somebody would go and pick it up for you.
Oh, that's cool. I don't remember that, but I
You're
just
the one who
remember
told me about
there was
that.
one in Lubbock too for a while.
I just remember literally the anxiety as a 18, 19, 20-year-old, and I think now millennials can understand too, and zillennials, I guess, that picking up the phone and calling the pizza place and actually telling them what you wanted to order.
Oh my gosh, I hated that. I hated it.
And also dentistry, you can schedule appointments online. You don't even have to call and make an appointment now.
Well, but today y'all were asking me to call somebody, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not gonna call them. Right. I'm gonna figure out how to do it online.
But that whole what you were talking about, it's taking me back, because I remember being 19 years old and my friend Emily and I were calling like a restaurant to place an order, and I hated doing that. Like, I would wait until the place almost closed because I was just so like nervous about calling a place to place an order. I don't know what it is. I think it was like, you know what? That anxiety.
I
had
that too, though, like with the Asian restaurants, because they didn't understand me very well. And I would always make Mark be the one to make the call because he could understand the people on the line with him, and I couldn't. And so when online ordering,
you were like, I got this.
Oh, yay, finally I can do it, and there's no confusion about what I'm ordering, you know. But you know, later generations will not understand that, and that's why. Like
no, they do. They still have that anxiety.
Well, they have the anxiety, but they don't know that. But yeah, I mean, that's my point, is they don't have to do it that way anymore. And eventually they won't even remember. There will be people who don't remember having to make those phone calls. And so being able to...
Oh, yeah, there won't even be phones anymore like
maybe,
that.
Who knows, you know. So, you know, there may come this time where that's a big story about using a phone. Payphones. Who's seen a payphone? When was the last time you saw a payphone?
Oh, but I have a story for you, and this is literally like going with what you're saying. One time at work, I used to lock up the building, and I accidentally locked up the building, and I left my wallet and my keys on my desk.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, just go inside. Well, no. My door badge was in my wallet, so I couldn't get in my car. And I couldn't get in my job. Right. I was literally stranded.
Right.
And I also didn't have a cell phone. For whatever reason, I think I left myself. I think I literally like walked out the building and left like my purse on my desk. And so I had nothing.
Right.
And I was, where my workplace is like surrounded by houses and apartments. So I had to walk, and a field surrounded by that. And so I had to walk like a mile before I found a payphone. Well, I never found a payphone. The moral of the story is that I walked to the 7-Eleven and they didn't have a payphone. And I was like, when does a 7-Eleven not have a payphone outside? And so then I had to walk the next major intersection to the Walmart, and they didn't have a payphone either. And I was like, what? They've always had a payphone in the front.
Nobody has payphones anymore.
And I ended up having to go to customer service at the front desk, and they were so nice because they were like, we don't normally do this, but I'm like, it's an emergency. I need a phone. Like, I'm stranded, and I had no way to get a hold of anybody. I mean, I could have probably like stuck my thumb out like a ding dong and got like a ride.
But that's a story in itself too, because people used to do that, and you can't do that.
Yeah. And you know, that for me was like, wow, times have really changed, because you literally have to have a cell phone in this day and age. Because they, like everything, they just ripped up all the payphones. And I was like, yeah, I remember the day when I discovered that there were no more payphones.
Yeah.
And that was in 2016.
But see, and by contrast,
I will never forget that day.
Gosh.
By contrast to that story, you know, here's my story that kids like Raina will not relate to.
There's no photo in my photo album about a payphone.
No, well, but there is. You don't have to have a photo, though. I mean, you could find one online if you wanted a photo.
Yeah.
But
if you
when
want
I
a
was
payphone, they have random ones places that are not actual phones anymore, though.
Right. But I had when I was like in junior high and high school, nobody had cell phones, obviously.
Yeah.
So when it was time, you know, like if you were after school with a you know, band or sports or whatever, and your parents weren't there, and it was time for them to come pick you up from band practice or whatever, you had to go use the payphone to call home. The school did not let you use the school phone.
I have a funny story about being stranded at school, or rather, prom. My senior prom, I had 2 dates, kind of. And I had a date, and then this other date picked us both up.
Okay.
And so we went to prom. with I was going to prom with a girl, and then a guy picked us up, and so we went to prom, and then somebody insulted the dress that she wore, and it upset her, and she walked out and left. And the guy and without telling me, and the guy that drove us went after her, like she ran down the street, and then he picked her up, and they left prom and left me there without telling me.
Yeah,
I didn't have a cell phone, I didn't have a ride, so I had to go and the school was closed, so I had to go and find somebody with a cell phone, which happened to be the vice principal, and ask him if I could use his cell phone to call my mom to come bring me my car.
Yeah. Well, and when I was in school, you couldn't even go find somebody to let you borrow their cell phone. There was no cell phone. Yeah. So, and the school didn't let you use the phone in the office or whatever. So,
yeah.
And there weren't phones in the classrooms, now they have, for a while they would have phones in the classroom. I don't think they do now, but.
I have a phone, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. But so, you literally had to find the payphone to call somebody, so that's a story that people would not understand unless you spelled it out for them. That's a story that would never be told if you don't tell it,
Yeah.
So,
it was traumatizing because I didn't like the vice principal. He intimidated me, and I had to ask him to use his phone.
They intimidate all the students, whether they will admit it or not. So it's funny you have that story, Amber. I have the exact same story, similar. So I went to a school dance with this boy. He was my driver, date, whatever. But ultimately, he was just a friend. It was a platonic date. He actually had a crush on this girl that I was friends with. And so the whole idea was I convinced him to go to the dance because she was going to be there. And remember, we got him all dressed up and he wore one of Dad's like dress jackets and a tie and shipped him off to the dance. And then my other friend, this other girl went with us too. So it was the three of us, but not the girl that he was, he wanted to see wasn't riding with us, right? So we get to the dance and this girl never came to the dance, even though she told everyone she was going to the dance. And then after the dance, we all went to IHOP and like with this big group of people. And that girl also said she was going to come to IHOP and she never came. And so my friend, the boy, decided that he was going to go drive to her house to go see her because she never came, right? And he was like, well, I'm going to just go tell her to her face that I like her or whatever. And so all the other people had left and it was just he was going to go in and come back, right? Jessica, my girlfriend, we stayed at IHOP because we weren't supposed to go anywhere else except
to IHOP and to home. That was the rules.
And so now I'm full disclosure because I'm an adult. I can tell you because I got in so much trouble for this, y'all. I didn't call my mom or anything. My best friend and I just stayed at the IHOP and we waited and we waited and we waited. And it was like 3:00 in the morning. And oh my gosh, whenever I came home, my mom like ripped me a new one. But I was not about to like rat my friend out. But I do remember her saying, you should have called me. But now that I think about it, I don't think there was a payphone there. And we didn't have cell phones.
Well, you would have had to have used
I would have had to have used IHOP's phone. But yeah, similar kind of scenario. Like now kids have phones. You could have just called me and been like,
where are you? Yeah.
Well, I think worse, like parents have that thing where you can see where your kids are. Yeah, even worse. It's probably even better. But yeah, the shared location thing, it wouldn't have even been an issue because I'm sure if we'd had cell phones back then, you would have known my exact location the whole time.
Right. And I would have called you and said, get your butt home. And then you would have said, I can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, because you didn't want to have to ask for help always.
Yeah.
You wanted to solve it on your own. And
yep.
And I'm sure you're thinking, oh, he'll be back any minute. He'll be back any minute. He'll be back any minute. Yeah.
Until it's 3 a.m. and then it's like, oh.
Yeah, I don't have a watch on me.
Yeah.
I don't know what time it was.
And they don't actually ever have, I don't think, clocks.
No, they don't keep
in the
clocks in restaurants because then people would be measuring how long it took to get their food out.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Gosh, I have like kind of was even younger in middle school. And I think I've told this story on this podcast before where I was left at Cece's Pizza by the...
No, you haven't.
I haven't?
No.
I was on a school trip with the band, and we had a band competition. And we were in Wichita Falls, and we went to Cece's Pizza. The whole school, or the whole band, went to Cece's Pizza. And I was probably, I think it was either in 7th or 8th grade. I think it was 8th grade. Yeah, it was 8th grade. And we were getting ready to leave and everything. And I told my friends, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. I told Stacy, hey, I'm going to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom and, I wash my hands, everything, leave the bathroom. Everybody's gone.
Oh, jeez.
Nobody's there. I look through everywhere. Nobody's there. And so this was before cell phones. I think like they had car phones or whatever. And I asked Cece's Pizza if I can use their phone to call my mom. I called my mom, who lived an hour away in Vernon, and she flipped out and called the police. So she made the police go track down the school bus and run them down.
Well,
and they were already halfway to Vernon by then, and they turned around and came back.
Well, and here's the big question: was that school people,
ever held accountable for forgetting?
Well,
you?
did they not do a head count when they got? I mean, because I've ridden on the bus, they did head count. They checked off everybody's name. So and so here, so and so here.
And the funny thing is that my stuff was still on the bus. My friends even said to the band director, hey, Amber's stuff is still here. And the band director was 100% certain that I got picked up by my parents. And, but they were like, but her stuff is still here. Because I said to them, I was like, why didn't y'all say I was not here? I told you I was going to the bathroom. And they were like, oh, Mr. Wofford insisted that your mom came and picked you up, even though your stuff was still here. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there like, why would I leave my stuff?
Makes you wonder if the teacher got you mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah, and there was even because there were 3 band directors. There was even a female band director that should have checked the bathrooms. They didn't. They didn't check the bathroom. Yeah. They didn't.
They should have had a
head count. Yeah. They just assumed that because I wasn't there, I got picked up.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we have all of these things that we have to check off before a student leaves.
Well,
like their parents have to sign.
Those things were in place back then too, because they did those when I was in school. But
so the school
somebody failed,
left me, and that story followed me into high school because we did band awards freshman year in high school, and I got the Where's Amber Award.
Oh, okay. I was going to say you're the one most likely to be left behind. Yeah,
that story. It was 8th grade. It followed me into high school, and I got the Where's Amber Award.
The sad thing about that stuff is those are the kind of awards that leave you traumatized. Because I had some awards like that in high school too. So,
I mean, I will never forget that story about how they left me at Cece's Pizza, and I still to this day don't like going to Cece's Pizza.
Yeah,
we used to go all the time.
And they're making fun of you for it. So, that's not making fun of the teachers. It's you that get made fun of. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so funny, like you said, traumatizing. And, really, honestly, when I think about it, it kind of was because I can't look at a Cece's Pizza or go to a Cece's Pizza.
You never really make that major connection with it until you start breaking down the memory.
Yeah, and then I'm always like, I don't like being here.
So you're right. You never wanted to go eat at Cece's. I was always like, let's go to Cece's, and you never wanted to go to Cece's.
No,
we never ate at Cece's together.
So this is another. Yeah, this is another big point about documenting your stories, scrapbooking your stories, or whatever. Yes. Is that it is a form of shadow work. It is a way for you to work through your stories and tell your perspective.
Yeah.
And put it out there, because your story is important.
Yeah. I think at first it may seem like superficial or shallow to scrapbook, where it's like, it's all about me, or I'm talking about like really superficial things, like this is my receipt from CVS, right? But I think like with practice,
it becomes something much deeper.
Much deeper.
Yeah. And like I said, you're telling stories like that she could do a page with a picture of Cece's or Cece's Pizza or the logo and write that story out. And then she's done shadow work.
And that's why I like the format of the Project Life, and just instead of trying to scrapbook all the events, scrapbooking the day-to-day, because that's when you're starting to be open to allowing the things in your scrapbook that aren't always happy events, right?
Yes.
Because when you're only doing the events or in the vacations, you're really just surface level. You're only scrapbooking.
It is. That is very
really,
shallow.
really happy memories, right?
Yeah.
And, when you get to like those more deeper things, being open and willing to scrapbook all the memories, not just the happy memories. Right. And I've also seen where people will just like get rid of all of their photos when they get a divorce or something.
Right.
Because
I did not do that.
Yeah, because, and I could see why. I'm on
I don't want to look
both sides of that, because I also wouldn't want to look at that too. And I look back and I'm like, wow, what a waste of papers that I scrapbooked, like all my past boyfriends or whatever.
Right.
But
those boyfriends taught you lessons.
Yeah.
About life.
Yeah.
And that failed marriage that you want to cut him out of the picture of taught you lessons about who you are and what you really want in your life. And, my ex and I were not married for a very long time at all, but I have never thrown out any of his pictures. I have not really scrapbooked much of that, but there will come a time when I'm ready to scrapbook that and talk about the lessons I learned from those stories. And also the fact that even though I'm not married to him anymore, he is still the father of one of my children. So it's important that story exists out there for her and her children or whatever, So I have a friend who found out recently that her mother had been married before she married her dad. Mm-hmm. So, and she didn't even know that. And she talks about sometimes how her mother was adamant that she go to school and get an education and be able to support herself. And she never understood why until she found out that her mother had been married before, and this person was he took care of her or whatever, but then when he got tired of her, he kind of dumped her and went for somebody else, and she was just kind of left out in the cold. So, her point was, you got to be able to take care of yourself. But she didn't even know that about her own mother until much later in her life. So, yes, it is important to document those stories. I really think so.
So here's my last question before we go. Have you ever looked back at a photo and realized that you've healed since then? Like when you're scrapbooking or
absolutely. And I've looked back at those stories. I've done in fact, here's a perfect example of one. I did as a prompt for Layout a Day. Mm-hmm. I did it was something that was, I don't even remember what it was. It was something you did for love or something like that. I don't remember what the prompt was. It's irrelevant. But I took a picture of Mark and me, and I wrote the story about how I moved to Dallas against my own better wishes. I didn't want to move. We lived in a small town. Initially, we were excited about moving to the big city or whatever, but then as it got closer, I was very reluctant to move because I didn't want to be away from my family. My sister was very ill, and we were moving to a town where I didn't know anyone. I didn't have a job. I was a stay-at-home mom with a 4-year-old and a junior high student. And I had no support system here. Our friends were supposed to move with us, but then all at the last minute, they all decided not to move. So then it was just me and my husband and our kids. And I didn't want to move. I didn't want to give up the security that I had, even though we were struggling where we were. And he kind of laid out the law for me, and he said, I'm moving whether you move or not. And that was it. Even I have healed, but at the time, I mean, the feelings come back to me because I realized, I mean, it was very harsh, and I had to face some realities there, and I did decide, I made the decision to move whether I wanted to or not, and I resented him for it for a long time, and I realize now that it was the best thing that we could have ever done for our family, and I'm glad we did it. I don't like the way he went about it, but I have healed from that, and when I go back and read that story, I remember who I was at that time and how much I've changed since then. And I realized how selfish I was in not wanting to move. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was very selfish of me to not want to move because it really was the best thing for our family. And the timing was perfect for it because you weren't in high school yet. And all of your all of your friends had dispersed to other schools. So you didn't have ties to a bunch of kids that you were giving up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen didn't have any friends yet because he hadn't entered school yet. And so it really was perfect timing for us to do it. But my selfishness didn't let me see that at the time. And my husband realized it. And the only thing I really resent about it was the way he went about it. But I went about it the wrong way too. I realized that. So yes, I have grown and learned. And when I look back at that story, it still kind of chokes me up a little bit because I realize how much I've grown and learned. But I'm glad I documented it because it shows me who I was then and how important my marriage was to me even then, that I would give up everything I knew.
And face your biggest
and
fear
face one of my biggest fears in order to stay with him. So, yes.
I like that. What about you, Amber?
I mean, I take a lot of pictures, and I don't really get rid of them because, at least not all of them, because sometimes, like, the memories are hard, and sometimes, like, my first marriage, I still have all of my pictures from that marriage. Christen attended, and she took pictures for me and video, and while I have gotten rid of a lot of photos of my ex-husband, I still have those photos, at least as a reminder of how bad things can get or how good things can get.
Right.
And one of these days I will preserve that memory. I know I did a lot of journaling around that time to talk about and am I ever going to go back and read those journals? Probably not, but they were good to get out and talk about.
Right. Well, and I think in looking at those pictures, you realize how much you gave up of yourself to make somebody else happy sometimes, and sometimes it's a good thing and sometimes it's not. In my case, it wound up being a good thing because he could see more clearly than I could. In your case, giving up of yourself to make him happy was not a good thing. but you still have that photo to remind you how much you've grown to appreciate yourself. Yeah.
And you also did a lot of that to make your other family members happy.
Yes. Yeah.
And reflecting back on that,
It
didn't create the outcome you expected, did it?
No.
Yeah.
No, it didn't.
I actually, when you mentioned that, that was something I hadn't really, talked about, because I just, recently, discussed openly about, being divorced and now remarried. And I never scrapbooked my first marriage. Like, I never, the wedding itself, I never got around to scrapbooking that.
You never even, showed me all of your pictures.
I never got a chance to post all the pictures. Yeah. And what's funny is, I had, put all the stuff in the box to make the photo album. And now I'm, kind of disinterested in creating that wedding album. And what you were talking about was, journaling and using the photo from your wedding in a different way. You're talking about journaling it from this current Amber versus that current Amber, right?
And that's something that you can do with that too. You don't have to make a whole
I don't have
album.
to make the album pretending like I'm that person from the past, recreating the album that had I made it then,
it would be very different, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'd have different thoughts in looking at it now. So you can still create the album, just do it as you are now. Don't. And I would say that
you can do it both ways. Yeah. Even though you can just put all the pictures in there. Here's your beautiful wedding that you had, and you can journal about how beautiful your wedding was and how much you loved it. But then you can also journal from who you are now.
Yeah.
Like she's saying, your perspective now about what that wedding was.
And I would do the same thing if I ever went and scrapbooked my past. And I do. And, I keep little snippets of everything. Y'all are like, oh, Amber doesn't scrapbook. But I mean, I keep little mementos and snippets of everything.
We keep saying you really do. You just don't realize that's what you're doing. Yeah.
That, whether it's gluing it on a journal page or whatever, in a way, it is kind of scrapbooking.
It is. It's not a kinda. It is.
It is scrapbooking. Yeah. But I made my first official scrapbook this year. Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Case closed.
At 41.
You don't even remember how old you are.
You've been calling yourself 42 this year, haven't you?
I have been all year.
Too.
I've been calling y'all 42.
I don't know why. The other day I realized that I'm not 42. It literally 6 months into being 41, I realized I'm 41, not 42.
Yeah, I know. I've been
5 of those 6 months. Because I just realized it in May. So it was 5 or maybe June. Yeah, I realized that I was 41 and not 42. So I was aging myself. I was about to be 43 in my mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, somebody asked me the other day how old you were. And I said, she's 42. Oh, no, she's turning 42 this year. Yeah. I had to stop and back up. Yeah.
Well, I know that was a long circle back to Project Life. I told you it wasn't all going to be about scrapbooking. So stay.
Never is.
So, thank you for joining us through that mind journey. I like to take you on a mind journey.
Well, I like to think of all of our things as a prompt. Our subjects are a prompt to get us talking.
That's not necessarily what we're solely talking about.
Right, right. Yeah. It just kickstarts the conversation.
Well, I'm curious what life journey we're going to talk about on our topic next week.
What are we talking about next week?
Cindy.
Ice cream.
Exactly. What kind of life journey are we?
All about ice cream.
I can turn it psychological and be like, your favorite flavor of ice cream means
there are
this.
tests out there that tell you what there are. But yeah, we're gonna keep it. It's gonna be kind of superficial.
So you say. Just wait until I jump in.
Just wait.
Right.
Until
I'll turn it dark or something real quick.
Like chocolate.
Oh my God.
Y'all crack me up. Well, thanks for spending time with us on Modern Musings, Conversations with the Maiden Mother and Crone. We hope today's episode sparks something meaningful in your journey, whether you're a scrapbooker or not. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen. So make sure you subscribe so you get that podcast coming to you directly every Wednesday. Leave a review if you enjoyed the show, and join the conversation over on our blog or the MMC chat group. Until next time, keep seeking, keep growing, and keep the conversation going.
Bye. That rhymes.